Tibet's political leader in exile, Dr. Lobsang Sangay, is in London, urging politicians here not to forget his people when doing business with China. He's with me in the studio today. But first, some background. Tibet's government fled Chinese rule in 1959 and has been in exile ever since. Beijing says the region has developed under its control, but rights groups say China continues to violate the rights of Tibetans. Well, in 2014, I interviewed Tibet's spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama. He told me how he sees the future. You said that you would potentially be the last Dalai Lama, so there won't be a 15 Dalai Lama.
That depends on the circumstances. The very institution of Dalai Lama should continue or not up to Tibetan people. You see, my death may not come within next year or 2 years. I think my death may come after, I think, 15, 20 years. Then the circumstances is such that then, you see, no longer relevant, this institution, then automatically cease. This man-made sort of institution will cease. No guarantee. Some stupid Dalai Lama comes, then disgraced himself or herself. That's very sad. So much better. The century-old tradition cease at the time of quite popular Dalai Lama.
That was the Dalai Lama speaking to me there in 2014. Well, Dr. Sangay joins us here in the studio. Thank you so much for joining us here on the program. What do you make of statements like that from the Dalai Lama, who says, you know, the institution, such an age-old institution, would cease to exist?
He is a spiritual leader and training by monk. So as a Buddhist, you renounce the life of samsara. So you look for a better life, spiritual life. In that sense, what he says, understandable coming from a revered monk and a spiritual leader. But as a Tibetan, he is an amazing leader. We want the 15th Dalai Lama to come, and it is for the Tibetan people to wish and pray that there be next Dalai Lama, and for sure. But he's very healthy though. So he has outlived Mao Zedong, he has outlived Deng Xiaoping. He will surely outlive many of the Chinese leaders that are there today.
But what does it say about the future of your people when he says, maybe some stupid Dalai Lama who's controlled by China may be the next or the 15th Dalai Lama?
No, I think if you go by the past history, and the present Dalai Lama is really good, I'm sure 15th Dalai Lama will be equally good. So it is for the Tibetan people, a Tibetan tradition, the Buddhist tradition, to train and groom the next Dalai Lama. And I think the 15th Dalai Lama will be also a global leader who will lead us to basic freedom in Tibet.
The freedom of your people and the recognition of your people remains under threat, yes, especially increasingly as China gains more prominence and dominance on the global stage.
That's true. The ultimate goal of China is to turn Tibet into China and make Tibetans into Chinese. That's their cultural assimilation drive. But Tibetan civilization is old. Tibetan identity is also deeply rooted. So we have a sense of pride that Tibetan people will be there on the Tibetan plateau for a long time to come. So in 60 years, they destroyed 98% of the monasteries, the nunneries. They destroyed 99.9% of monks and nuns in 1960s. Now, if you look back, in 60 years, most of the major monasteries are already rebuilt and revived in Tibet, and many thousands and thousands of monks and nuns are practicing Buddhism. In that sense, from almost a complete destruction of Tibetan tradition, the revival is going on. So the revival is so strong, as you might know, the Larungar case, where estimated 20,000 monks and nuns, lay people, including thousands of Chinese, are there following Tibetan Buddhism. But now the Chinese government has destroyed part of the Larungar monastery in 2001. They are destroying again. 3 nuns committed suicide just recently, and if you go to YouTube, you'll see that many of the nuns and monks are bundled up and put in trucks and buses and sent off. Yeah.
I mean, do you think the world, though, and global leaders are paying attention to what's happening to your people? Because China is increasingly very important for them.
I know, given China's, the military power, political power, and economic power, unfortunately, now global leaders are also paying more, they're leaning more towards money than morals and values, unfortunately.
And they're frozen out politically when they do say meet the Dalai Lama or engage in any discussion about Tibet.
I know he is one of the most revered leaders. He is most loved. As certain polls have shown, he is one of the most popular leaders in the world. And in 2011, he has separated the church and the state, and he remains a spiritual leader. Like the Pope, he should be welcomed by leaders around the world and to meet and gain some wisdom from him.
But
right?
they're concerned about
But they
meeting.
don't, unfortunately, yes. Even though the UK Constitution and European Constitution and other countries around the world, they talk about democracy and human rights and values all the time. But when it comes to practicing those values, they shy away from meeting His Holiness the Dalai Lama. That's a very unfortunate commentary as to the status of that country and the very principles on which those countries have built their own country and constitution.
Dr. Sangay, thanks so much for joining us here on the program.
Thank you very much.